Ladies and gentlemen, Season 4 of Black Ops Cold War and Warzone is here. Yesterday, I made a video going over all of the changes that happened in Black Ops Cold War. If you want to check that out, it'll be linked down in the description. And on top of that, I also uploaded a video earlier today going over all of the Battle Pass things in Season 4. So I'll have those both linked down in the description. But as far as this video goes, we are going to be going over everything that has changed in Warzone. We have huge weapon changes that are actually going to change up the meta, including attachments and all of that we're going to go over. On top of that, new POIs, locations, new playlists within Warzone, and on top of that, the secret red doors, which are probably the most interesting part of Season 4. So I'm not going to extend this intro any further. Let's dive in to everything new within Season 4 of Warzone. So once you're into Season 4, specifically in Warzone, you're going to first notice the new event called Groundfall. Now, this one has basically 3 challenges in Warzone, 3 challenges in Black Ops, and essentially if you complete them, you get a pretty cool pistol blueprint. Now, as far as completing these, they mainly revolve around the satellites and uplink stations. Pretty straightforward. And the interesting thing though is you only have 1 week to complete this, so you're going to want to make sure you get it out of the way pretty damn quickly. Now, aside from this, the playlists that we have are, first of all, the normal battle royale playlist with quads, trios, duos, and solos. We also have Verdansk Resurgence Mini, which is basically the resurgence that you see with Rebirth Island, but it is only on Verdansk. Now, it's limited amount of players, limited amount of area, and it should be a pretty fast game mode if you haven't checked it out already. And then, of course, we also have Plunder quads as well. Now, as far as Verdansk as a whole, what has changed? First off, in Verdansk, we have a couple new locations. One's in farmland, one's kind of downtown on a bridge, but what essentially they are is where the satellites have crashed into Verdansk. Now, as far as POIs, these aren't really brand new locations. They just kind of took some locations with very minimal stuff there, added these crashed satellites. It's really nothing too special, if I'm being honest with you. One of the smaller updates to the map that we've actually received in a seasonal update. However, they did add one more thing, and that is the red doors. Now, personally, I haven't found one of these red doors yet. However, I reached out on Twitter and Anthony sent me a clip here of going through the red doors. You see some numbers, and then it puts you into a random location on the map, which has a couple of legendary chests, and inside of them, one of them, you'll find an advanced UAV, you'll find a whole bunch of money, which of course will help your team out in the game, but you can't go back through the red door to get back to your team. It's an interesting mechanic in the game, and they're pretty rare. I personally haven't found one yet, and I'm interested to see how they kind of mix into the meta of the game, and also how long they stay for, since the Groundfall event is only about a week long. Now, the next thing that we have is the new weapons. First off, the MG82. This one is a fully automatic LMG, which has the fastest fire rate out of the LMGs, and as of right now, this is going to be an absolute meta gun within Warzone. You're going to want to unlock this one right away, get a bunch of attachments for it, because this is going to be a weapon that you're definitely going to want to use before it gets nerfed. The second weapon, unlocked at rank 31 of the Battle Pass, is called the C58. It has a slower fire rate, not really a meta weapon, but it hits pretty hard, might be worth trying out, but out of the two, the MG is absolutely the one that you're going to want to use. However, there is a third weapon. So within Warzone, it is under the SMGs. Within Black Ops, it's under the special weapons. This one is the nail gun, and to unlock it, you have to get 5 eliminations with special weapons in 15 different matches. Definitely easier to do in Black Ops or even in Zombies. But as far as this goes, essentially this gun is really good up close, has an insane time to kill. So it's good, but it shoots a projectile, so you do have to lead your targets a little bit. I'm not sure whether this is going to be meta yet because it's more difficult to use, but I wouldn't be surprised if up close this might be a weapon that you might want to actually use. But we'll have to wait and see. But as far as this goes, nail gun and MG are the two that you're actually going to want to try in Warzone. So another change that you'll notice with Season 4 is the Gulag. They have updated it, so the Gulag is now hijacked, and they did this in an interesting way. They basically built a wooden boat inside of the Gulag, and you can go and fight on it. There's a lot of head glitches, a lot of walls you can shoot through, so it's going to be interesting to see how this actually fits into the game. Obviously, the standoff version is gone, and this one is now here for Season 4. So next up, we move into the general game fixes and the weapon changes. There's a lot of weapon changes that we have to go over, but first off, we have 120 hertz support for just PS5. They have updated this. It only works with HDMI 2.1, so if you're a PlayStation 5 player, that might interest you. Another thing they updated, they added the dirt bike into the game. game. Essentially, this is the new fastest vehicle within Warzone. 2 people can sit on it. It's basically the best way to get around, or at least the fastest way to get around the map other than a helicopter. The other thing is the loot spawn. So first of all, the C58 and the MG82 have been added to the ground loot, as well as the combat bow, which is the kill streak, can now be picked up off the ground, which is kind of interesting. Also, the self-revive kit, the spawn rate has been reduced, so you'll find less self-revive kits on the ground. So finally, moving on to the weapon changes, there's a lot of these, so brace yourself. First off, we have the CR56 AMAX getting nerfed once again. The upper torso damage multiplier decreased from 1.2 to 1.1, essentially taking 1 extra bullet to kill. This is probably the nerf that takes the CR56 AMAX out of the meta. After this, we have the Groza, so there's a lot to this one. Minimum damage increase from 18 to 23. Upper torso damage multiplier increase from 1.1 to 1.2. Lower torso damage from 1 to 1.1. And the maximum damage range increased by 12%. That's a pretty big buff, and I'm interested to see how this affects this as kind of like a short to mid-range weapon in game. Then we have the Modern Warfare Scar getting updated here, and as far as this one goes, essentially what changes, the neck multiplier increased from 1 to 1.5 and the upper torso from 1 to 1.2. Shouldn't change this weapon up too much, however, you're gonna deal a little bit more damage with it. Then we have the XM4. This one simply got a neck damage multiplier from 1 to 1.5. I don't see this really changing the XM4 too much, just puts its neck multiplier more on par with its headshot. So then we have the MP63, which was recently added to the game, getting a big buff. Maximum damage increase from 30 to 33. Second damage range increased by 14.3%. Upper torso damage multiplier from 1 to 1.1. Extremities multiplier from 0.9 to 1. And headshot multiplier decreased from 1.4 to 1.3. I don't think this is what this weapon needed. It has a very small magazine, and that's why I think a lot of people aren't using it in game. It'd be interesting to see if that makes it much better, especially akimbo, so I'll have to give it a shot, but I kind of doubt it. Then we have the ballistic knife. The projectile velocity increased by 25%, neck damage multiplier from 1 to 1.3, upper torso damage multiplier from 1 to 1.23, and move speed increased by 1.3%. I don't see this as a weapon anyone's using really in game. I've never been killed by it, so I don't see making this a viable weapon, but hey, if you're going for some trick shots, I guess this is for you. Then the street sweeper nerfed once again. Maximum damage range decreased by 24%, second damage range decreased by 18%, third damage range decreased by 7%, and move speed decreased by 1%. Essentially, they just don't want anyone using this weapon. After this, we have the M82. The bullet velocity is increased by 7.7%. The upper torso damage multiplier increased from 1.1 to 1.25, and the lower damage multiplier increased from 1 to 1.15. Basically, they're making this to try to be a harder hitting sniper rifle, and the bullet velocity increase, of course, is always nice. Then we have the Swiss. This one has a flinch resistance greatly increased, ADS speed increased slightly, and aiming stability increased. Again, don't think this is going to make this much more viable, but it's going to be easier to shoot when being shot at. The next one's interesting. The AUG from Modern Warfare actually got an update. So the upper torso damage multiplier from 1 to 1.1 and maximum damage range increased by 10%. I don't know if this is going to make this weapon viable, but it's interesting to see them update a Modern Warfare weapon like this. After this, the KSP-45 from Black Ops had a maximum damage range increase by 16.6% and an extremities multiplier from 0.9 to 1. Now, with this is not going to be a viable weapon still, but they're trying, I guess. Then the biggest update is the Milano. The max damage increased from 34 to 36. The minimum damage increased from 25 to 30. The max damage range increased by 23%. The upper torso damage multiplier from 1 to 1.2. Lower torso damage multiplier from 1 to 1.1. And the extremities multiplier from 0.9 to 1. This is probably the biggest update you'll see, and it's basically taking this from a not at all viable weapon to a decent weapon. It is not the best SMG in the game, but it is way, way better than it was before. Then we have the Bison from Modern Warfare. The max damage increased from 34 to 35, and the extremities multiplier from 0.9 to 1. Again, not going to make a huge difference with this weapon, just a little bit better than before. And then the final weapon is the DMR, and basically they just reduce the recoil on this weapon. Now, I don't normally just show the patch notes for attachments. I normally just talk about the important ones, but a lot of these are important. So I just thought I'd show the whole thing. For snipers, we have the combat recon barrel getting upgraded, updating and increasing the bullet velocity for all of the sniper rifles, making them a little bit more viable. We also have assault rifle barrels like the Ranger and Takedown, increasing the recoil control control or horizontal recoil control for the takedown, and increasing the effective damage range for the takedown, which of course is very important, and for the ranger, increasing bullet velocity. So it's going to depend on which barrel you use based off of the original stats of that given assault rifle. This is also the reinforced heavy, had a bunch of things changed. So basically you're going to want to have a look at this, compare it to the stats of the weapon to decide what type of barrel you're using. This is going to change up loadouts by quite a large extent. The axial arms, the optic position was once again shifted. They are really trying to get these optics correct. And finally, the bruiser grip got an aiming stability increase from 10% to 19%. These are all a pretty big deal, but you really want to pay attention to these barrels here, because that's going to be the thing that you notice the most and is going to change the most in your loadouts. And of course, once I get some playtime, I will bring you guys the best loadouts for season 4, and it's probably going to be one of the biggest changes in the meta that I think we'll see in a while. So ladies and gentlemen, that is everything in the Warzone season 4 update. I have to say, I don't love the map update. I was kind of hoping for a brand new POI or some sort of new area on the map, and they did throw some satellites down on the map, but not my favorite update map wise. But a ton of weapon changes, and that's going to change up the meta, and that's where you're going to notice the biggest difference in season 4 with Warzone. So let me know what you think of the update down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, always appreciate it if you hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, like what you see, want to stay up to date on everything Call of Duty, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're